Hey, everybody. Hope everyone's doing good. We're going to go live here in just a few minutes. We're going to bring our panelists on. We're going to let a few people jump in. Hope everyone's doing good today. Where's everyone signing in from? Greetings from New York, Indonesia, Florida by way of Ohio. We see you. Got Fariel in New York. What's up, Fariel? Give everyone just a minute here to get on. Houston, see you. Sunshine State, LA, Arizona, Romania. Coming in from all over the place. I love it. UK, I see you, JD Gruce. West Virginia, love it. Cool. Well, we'll let some people filter in, but I just wanted to say hello to everyone and say thanks for joining today's TuneCore Live Session. We're going to be talking about digital marketing basics. I'm Kevin Cornell, as always, from TuneCore, and I'll be moderating today's conversation. Before I introduce the panelists, I just want to dive into a little bit about what today's live session is all about. When we say digital marketing, we know that's a pretty big phrase. As an independent artist, you're likely familiar with the fact that there's really a lot that goes into into marketing your releases, marketing your videos, your live dates. And as we talk about a lot on TuneCore Live Sessions, just marketing you and your brand online. So if you're totally just starting out, that means, setting up your social profiles, gathering photos and other creative assets, just sort of developing your aesthetic, writing a bio, distributing your music, and of course, setting up your artist profiles on Spotify and Apple Music and Amazon. And really just sort of starting to promote yourself and build a new fan base. But if we look further down the road as an independent artist, digital marketing might mean something a lot bigger, like working with a publicist or working with a label services agency. Maybe you've got a manager and you're earning enough revenue month to month to build out some pretty extensive advertising budgets. Maybe you got a booking agent and you're on tour with a much bigger artist, touring the world all year. But today we're kind of going to be talking to independent artists who find themselves somewhere in the middle. Our past live sessions I've mentioned have sort of touched on the importance of building that digital brand, planning your successful release campaigns. But our conversation this afternoon, we're going to be, talking about some of those what's next questions, right? So as always, we're going to highlight how you can do it yourself and on a reasonable budget and, with the tools that are at your fingertips, not unlike TuneCore. So without further ado, I'll bring our panelists in here. Hey, everyone. So today we're going to be talking with Corey Crossfield, who is the Director of Client Services at Feature FM. TuneCore and Feature FM have been partners for years. We're thrilled to have Corey today. Laura Brown is our Senior Specialist in Performance Marketing at TuneCore and my colleague for the past 6 years. And No Komment, who is aka Naughty Khan, who's a Brooklyn-based MC who's been using TuneCore for years. And No Komment's amassed hundreds of thousands of streams on DSPs all over the world. So just wanted to say thanks to all my panelists for joining today. And let's just get into it a bit. I'll start out with a question for all. So as I was sort of introducing the topic, I mentioned, just those sort of baseline digital marketing stuff you need to cross off the list, essentially. But knowing that a lot of artists tuning today are at different phases of their music careers, I wanted to, just get hear what everyone considers to be those baseline fundamental steps that artists should take or cross off before diving into ad campaigns and building smart links. And Corey, I'll start off with you.
I think a marketing plan is always one that's underestimated, especially when you're getting into advertising or pre-saves or smart links. I think having a solid marketing plan, just even outlining when the release is coming out, when, generally when you're doing a pre-save or an EP or an album, you're going to have a single that's tied to that, making sure that you have those dates ironed out so that you can put in your digital initiatives with those to coincide.
Totally. And Naughty, as an artist, what are some things you sort of just had to get your head around, crossing off the list as you first started to release music with TuneCore?
Yeah, I mean, I've been releasing with TuneCore for almost 10 years. It was obviously much different when I was a teenager doing it. But recently, as I took a more serious approach to it, social media is definitely one thing to check off to have. I'm actually not a huge fan. I don't love social media, and I think the big reasons I'm not that good at it. But I knew I needed the presence, and sometimes part of it is recognizing what you're not as good at, looking to your friends, getting help. And then a big thing is content and like the music, right? Sometimes I think that as an artist, it's important to be comfortable with your music and like putting yourself out there before you put yourself out there. And everyone has their own approach, but that's just kind of my personal thing was making sure I had the content, I had, some pictures ready, I had good music that I liked listening to, that I could play with other artists' music that I liked to listen to. And once I checked those things off, then I'd say it was the social media, and then eventually into ads and stuff like that. But I'm sure we'll talk later.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I love to hear, I love to hear you say that you're not a huge fan of social media, but you understand the importance of it and having to figure it out. Because I think a lot of artists are in your shoes, especially starting out. It's just getting comfortable talking about yourself, promoting yourself. And Laura, who I should also mention, I don't know if she wants me to mention this, but Laura is also a very talented artist herself, despite just working with artists at TuneCore and working on the marketing side. So Laura, were there any things from your personal experience or just from what you've seen working at TuneCore that artists should really sort of cross off before taking that next plunge?
Well, I think especially with Facebook and Instagram, it's really important that you have your Instagram set up as a business account, especially if you are going to eventually boost your own posts and create ads. You also want to make sure that those two accounts are connected before you go ahead and actually start, creating those ads. Yeah, and obviously, just at the end of the day, it really comes down to just the music that you're creating and really just believing in yourself and doing it for you and nobody else.
No, that's huge. And I'm going to stick with you actually, Laura, because you mentioned ads, and I feel like a lot has changed over the past, 5-10 years in terms of how the average independent artist might approach ads. Like, I feel like 10 years ago, they'd be like, ads, I don't have money. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? And now it's just sort of like, no, these are crucial sometimes to really break through. So as an artist begins to sort of bring new strategies into the fold of their own marketing mix, when do you think is a good time to start thinking of buying ads on Instagram or YouTube?
I mean, honestly, you can start at any time, especially depending on the different targeting that you're doing on Facebook and Instagram. Obviously, I'd recommend doing it once you have something big to announce, like say a new single that you're dropping, or maybe you have a new music video that's coming out, or an upcoming show, something to really get your audience engaged. You don't want to, hit them with the same content over and over again. Frequency is definitely something that you should keep in mind. And definitely, we'll get more into this, but I recommend that if you are going to start, boosting posts, you can do it from Facebook and Instagram directly, but I don't recommend doing it this way. I definitely recommend creating an ads manager account, which you can easily do at business.facebook.com/ads manager. And from there, it's way more straightforward, and you can more easily, categorize the different campaigns that you have going on.
That's great. And I'm gonna make sure when we get back into that, I'll put that link up for everyone to check out if you haven't already. But kicking it over to No Komment, we all know that, independent artists are different when it comes to, their marketing strategies and just development overall. So you had mentioned some of how you got started, but at what point did you start considering, just budgeting for things like social ads? What was your first experience like doing that?
Yeah, for sure. So the question the first question I asked myself as an artist is how good is my music for me, right? Again, you have to make things for yourself. And so once I felt I'd been over that hump for quite some time. And the next question was, how do I get more people to find my music or listen to it? And I start to think about how I discover music, and just doing research. And there's obviously a bunch of different approaches, right? I think the first thing I'd start with is go grassroots, right? Before you're investing money, like make sure that in your local community, right, wherever you're at, with your friends, your family, like they're going to be lifelong fans. They're going to support you no matter what. Make sure you're kind of reaching out to them, and you don't want to obviously spam them, but the people that love you will understand. And building that trustworthy network and kind of starting there so that you can get some more feedback, maybe even create some type of like local, natural grassroots type of environment around your music. But then for me, I felt like I need to reach people that I can't just reach immediately and who I can't reach from like one person sharing my stuff, my song, two people sharing, because that had already grown out and I really wanted to reach another level. So I just did, Google's your best friend, and looking at other artists is really helpful. Like that is the benefit of the internet, like Reddit, Google, everything, like interviews. I watched hours of like DaBaby, Drake, whatever, from big artists like Drake to Russ, right? To people who are on more independent artists, smaller artists, looking at people who are like, hey, who's someone who's a more achievable goal, right? And like, do they have an interview? Going through hours of that, I saw, a lot of people were talking about ads. I never even thought about that. I don't really discover much music on ads. So sometimes you have to step out of yourself. And so once I did that, and I was like, oh, wow, like a lot of people are discovering this. They're on, and I started to find myself, like, as I was on Instagram more, if a song pops up, like, yeah, I'll give it a listen. Algorithm and targeting is good. They typically will find something you like. So once I got to that stage, that was when I started to think about budgeting, and, you're kind of restricted by your financial situation. And so I had to be lean with it. I'm just going to do a quick plug. Like no one even asked me to do this, but it was someone I found really helpful was Andrew Southworth on YouTube, who just
we love that.
how he ran his ad campaigns on Facebook. And it was a really the best thing about it is you can put in as much money as you have in the moment. And the craziest thing was the amount of results, and they change and fluctuate. It really is a changing dynamic, so you need to stay on top of it. But just for some specifics, like at first I was putting in like $5 a day for like 2 weeks, and I saw my listener count go from like 80 listeners to over 1,000, like just from running those ads because they were targeted. And it's real. Like I had people in my DMs within those 2 weeks. That was the best feeling ever. Like, hey man, from like Brazil, from LA, from wherever, loved your music, found it on like an ad, became a fan, followed you. And then those people will keep listening to your music as you put it out. So it's like building on top. So that's kind of the step I was at when I approached going into ads, and the budget was small, and it really did go.
No, that's great. And that's great testimony, because I think what we want to kind of hammer and demystify is the fact that you don't have to have a massive budget to start working on this stuff. And Corey, I wanted to kick one to you because, obviously working for TuneCore, I'm a little bit more familiar than the average bear with Feature FM, but I've also watched it evolve a bit over the years, just in terms of what can actually offer independent artists. So, I'm going to constantly plug Feature FM because I use it outside of TuneCore when I'm helping artists release music. It's super valuable, and we'll dive into some of the available tools in this hour. But in your experience, Corey, explain what you tend to see in terms of artists, expanding their playbook, as it were, when it comes to digital marketing and as they start to release more music.
I think that they start acquiring more data points. And I think that, through this, whether it's strategic advertising or just even sharing a pre-save on social media, they sort of start to see the like one-to-one effect that they have, right? Because when you go to social media platforms and you have all these numbers, you really don't see what that looks like for fans. So when you're able to sort of break it down, like especially with our platform, and we do have competitors, but they all really offer artists a lens into their fans, and like, from where they are, like with regards to country or demographics, to even what streaming services they're using. So that really sort of adds a layer for advertising in particular, I think, where you can make more strategic buys, and you can do more strategic things like target fans that you didn't know you might have had in Canada. I don't know why Canada is my example today, but that's it. So you're able to sort of see where your fans are. And I think that adds another layer to releases, right? If you're going to release a pre-save or you have an album dropping or an EP, you really want to focus and hone in on those people that are listening, but also see where they're coming from so that you can maybe replicate that with advertising.
Yeah, and I think that's huge, and we're going to talk more about just sort of what data can mean in these scenarios and how you can actually use it to make better marketing decisions for every next release. And I think a recurring theme that we have with TuneCore Live Sessions is make mistakes, learn from them, and apply it to your next release, because you can't dwell on this stuff. But earlier, and I'll stay with you, Corey, just because we're here. But earlier, No Komment was talking about just some of the research he was doing, and he mentioned Reddit, he mentioned YouTube, he mentioned watching other artists, and I think that stuff is super important. And it kind of goes into one of the questions I had, just as a general sort of thing for artists out there, which is knowing that once it's time to start thinking about maybe putting some more money into your marketing strategies, even a little. We know that artists can be trepidatious around this stuff. So in addition to sort of what No Komment had mentioned, do you have any sort of research beforehand that you recommend artists taking before diving into before those next steps?
Yeah, I'm a huge data nerd, and I'm going to keep hammering that point today because I think it's extremely valuable, especially for independent artists. I look at every analytics available for any type of streaming service or social media platform, again, just to make sure that, when you're releasing things, it is easy to, upload a release and put it up so it's available. But really where it comes down to building an audience that you even would be able to target with advertising or anything with digital marketing, it's really important to see where you're looking. So I use like Spotify for artists. We also look at, obviously, like on our platform, you're able to see analytics from past campaigns that you've done in a very comprehensive overview, which is probably too much for even this live session. But I always start there because I like to form my buys or even plans or things like that. And a lot of our users do by seeing where it's at, right? Like you need to know where you're at in the moment before a release comes out to see and identify which points you want to reach. So if you want to get more playlists, if you want to get more playlist coverage in Spotify, how do you gamify the algorithm there? Where are the fans that you have on the platform now that you can reach and then use the algorithm to get into Discover Weekly or things like that? Those are points that I always like to start with before even getting into advertising or marketing around a release, because it's really where you start.
Yeah, I think our audience is going to love that, because I think, when you talk about data and how to start using it, it's easy to overlook. But once you start talking about how you can apply metrics from Spotify for artists and stuff like that, it becomes a lot more attainable. And Laura, I wanted to kick this over to you as well. So we had No Komment talking about really just getting into the weeds with research on Reddit and YouTube and the likes. Corey mentioned really focusing on the data. What sort of research do you recommend? And maybe it comes from the TuneCore side, because obviously, what would a TuneCore live session be without promoting TuneCore and what sort of data we offer in terms of location?
Yeah, we also offer a ton of information, where exactly your streams are coming from, who's streaming it. Similarly to, Spotify for artists. I also think that there are a ton of really good blogs out there for musicians and other promotional services outside of, playlisting and things like that. I know I really like Amari MC is a great blog. They have a ton of information on all kinds of, genres and things like that. And also when it comes to ads too, Facebook actually has an entire, class that you can take. It's called Facebook Blueprint. They have tons of courses that you can actually tap into for free and learn exactly how to, create audiences and do all of that yourself.
That's great. It's good that they're, it's no surprise that Facebook has resources like that, especially if they're taking your money to run ads. It's good that they can follow up with that. We love Facebook. Well, while we're on it, we tapped into budgeting a little bit, right, earlier. So I'll stick with you, Laura, because we're here. Nadi kind of got into his $5 a day budget that he started on. But just knowing in reality that most up-and-coming artists, in terms of disposable income to spend on ads, it's pretty limited. What kind of myths about ad budgets can we dispel here in terms of different platforms and what's doable?
Yeah, so I think the biggest myth is that you need a ton of money to run ads, and that's just not true. You can literally, like No Komment did, run ads for $5 to $10 and you can hit a ton of people. And the great part about Facebook and Instagram and even YouTube is before you push your ads live, you can actually see the daily results that you're going to get from the budget that you have. So you can kind of play around and look at those numbers and say, okay, how many people do I actually want to hit? If it's like a reach campaign, for example, how many people am I looking to reach with this? And then from there, kind of move around your budget and see what number you feel most comfortable with. And also another good thing about, campaigns in general is that along with these campaigns come with goals, and Facebook allows you to create, reach campaigns, brand awareness campaigns, traffic campaigns, engagement campaigns, video views campaigns. There's so many things that you can do. And I mean, again, just the fact that they're very transparent with what you can reach with that certain amount is really helpful.
Yeah, I've noticed that over the years, Facebook has really gotten more, I guess just they're catering to a lot more people in terms of their goals. And I think that's really cool because it gives you a lot more, gives you an idea of, it helps, especially for the average, artist who's just diving into it. It helps sort of structure exactly what you want out of an ad, maybe even if you don't know what you want out of an ad. So that's really helpful. And I think that's a good thing to shine some light on for folks who maybe dive into this for the first time after this conversation. I wanted to kick it over to No Komment because you did talk a little bit about budgeting, but we also know that we can sit here and talk about it all day, but it's always helpful to have an artist sort of, take it from their perspective. So I guess what advice would you have for artists when it comes to taking that next step, and even starting to think about investing on a small budget on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube? Do you have any words of encouragement there?
Yeah, just that a lot of this stuff works, but it's a grind, and this might not necessarily be the best words of encouragement, but I think it will for everyone who's here and doing this, is that you are your own CEO essentially, right? You're running your own business. And so it means you're going to have to wear every hat, right? Some people are lucky. You might have someone who can help you with marketing and do some of these things for you. But a lot of times when you're starting, it really is, you've got to wear every hat, you've got to do every job. And so the time and effort you put in, the best thing is it just gets better and better and you learn more and more. And the learning a lot of times is free, or like I said, it can cost $5 a day. So I would just say going into it with an open mind, and I really, and definitely want to highlight, I would definitely recommend if you're going to run the ads, sometimes it takes just taking that next step and not doing the easiest thing. I would not start with just boosting a post on Instagram or boosting it on Facebook. Yeah, that takes 2 seconds and you can put $5 on that. But if you set up that ad manager account, the benefit getting an hour, 2 hours to look through some YouTube videos, they literally will walk you through step by step. You'll get a better return. I found that really to be the best first thing. But beyond that, just don't be afraid to try everything and anything. People they make one TikTok, it goes viral, and do what you're comfortable with too. So some people really don't want to put themselves out there like that. They really want to make their music and they kind of want to, then the ads can really be a thing to run with, right? Because it's just putting your music in front of people. But if you are someone who also is really good at some content and really creative in that type of sense, get on TikTok, put your song on something, it's free. That's still the only algorithm out there that, as far as I'm aware of, where you make one video and it naturally can go viral. You got to kind of try everything that you at least have some comfort level doing. And it won't be the same recipe for everybody, but everything kind of snowballs onto itself. So it might be right for one artist that went viral or went crazy or found the right person, and that took you to the 10x level, the 100x level you want to be. It could be a TikTok, it could be a feature from an artist, right? But you're gonna have to kind of try to do everything. But I would say that if you're starting out and you're in that early phase, that the return on ads, just from personal experience, has been really tremendous. It does feed into the things that Corey mentioned, and I think Laura touched on too, is just I got on Discover Weekly. It took 4 or 5 months, right? But that I was getting tens of thousands of streams from that, from Release Radar, and then that's real people who then find your music, they follow you, and it's a new type of world where the thing is, sure, I see spikes if I run certain ads or I got a certain playlist placement, but the best thing is after, yes, the spike goes down, but I see that baseline where oh wow, I'm just going to decide to spend $0 on marketing for 3 weeks or a month, and the listeners I'm getting every day are hundreds more, thousands more than I had previously. So it's a lasting impact,
Sure. Yeah. You're seeing the results that matter when you see the continued listenership. And I think I really like what you touched on, because I feel like it's kind of a myth, not a myth, but when you think about advertising, you think about really putting yourself out to the world. But you're right. If you're a more introverted artist in terms of what your aesthetic is or what you want to go do in the world publicly, you really can just put music out there and let it speak for itself on a small ad budget. And I kind of wanted to shift gears a little bit and dive into some of the capabilities of Feature FM. I'm going to come back to No Komment in a moment, but I want to kick it over to Corey because there's something that artists, TuneCore artists specifically, really love about Feature FM is the short links and smart links that are offered. And can you break down just quickly, because I think these are terms that get thrown around a lot, all the different links. So can you break down like what a smart link is, what a bio link is, for example, and just the ways that artists can be utilizing these around a new release or a new video, or how they can utilize them in between projects?
So the easy questions. So let's start with probably the most obvious, which is probably a pre-save link,
Sure.
which is for a release before it comes out, right? So it's a landing page or a URL that you share across your socials for people to pre-save a track or an album or an EP that you have. A smart link is essentially the same thing as a pre-save. It's just available now. So a pre-save will turn into a smart link once it's released. And the smart links are just for releases that are available on platforms. Pre-saves aren't because it's not up yet. The whole purpose of a pre-save is to use that to have people save it before it's out. Short link is just a link shortener. So what that means is it'll take, like, let's say you have a press link that you want to shorten and pixel people with. That's what a short link is. It'll just shorten the link, put in whatever URL you want, and you can share it on your socials. And a bio link is, I don't think I'm allowed to say it like another competitor, but it's a landing page. I'll just say it. It's like a link tree, but ours are specifically focused around music, right? So it's a product where you're able to incorporate many different links if you want. You can embed a YouTube video. You can do what we call actions, which are just like contesting elements, all on one page that you can fully customize and sort of cater to any music that you release or anything around it. And those are meant to live in like the Instagram bio or TikTok bio, purely because those platforms have what we call like the little browser that loads anytime you click a link or swipe up. And it's meant for you to use as an artist so that you can pixel people and be able to use those people that are coming and clicking or visiting after they see it in an ad and remarket to them, which I'm sure we'll touch on in a little bit. But
no, and I mean, don't sleep on those. I think they're really helpful. I use one for just my little label on Instagram, and it's just like the stuff you can promote on there, and it's so, as you put it, just music centric. It's really, really helpful, and it keeps like just like a nice, I don't know, it's got a nice aesthetic to it, and it's very friendly to promote stuff. I am gonna kick it back to No Komment on this one, just because you're an artist who has a lot of experience marketing your own release campaigns. So what are your thoughts on pre-saves and smart links, and just specifically how they can be implemented into release strategies that some artists might not think to? So and this is whether you're promoting on social or if you're actually pitching to press or media on your own.
For sure. So I would say that it depends what stage you're at. So with a pre-save link, and you have to understand like what the intent is, it won't even affect the Spotify algorithm immediately because they don't know to listen to it yet. Like that's all based off real listening habits when the song is out. What a pre-save does is it's a momentum builder, and it can be a catalyst. So I would say if you are going to release a new song and you have like a proper plan around it, that's where like the plan really comes in, like writing out like a release, like, oh, 7 days my release day, 2 weeks after. You've got at least a small budget and you really think it's like a hit or something, because you have to think about the crowd psychology too of your fans. Like when you're doing a pre-save and you're asking people to do this and you're marketing it when you're starting out, that is a lift. And I've seen that real time where it's like, when people who will still listen to your music, they're not going to keep doing everything for you, where you're asking them to take specific actions. And I definitely would not like spend ad money on marketing a pre-save. That's just my opinion from what I've seen. I've done it, had very, very low returns. But the pre-save has had a lot of success in building momentum to a specific release, getting that hype where like on the release day, you get hundreds, if not thousands of saves, which will then, if it is a good song, they'll listen to it multiple times. That can trigger the algorithm and get you that free marketing that is really what is explosive. So I'd say if you really think you have a hit, you've got a little budget, you've got some runway, it's more of like a special thing with a pre-save, where you're doing an album and you've already got an established fan base. versus smart links. You always need that if you're going to run. I think you should always create a smart link for every song you have, because if you're going to do the ads on Facebook, the best thing to do with Facebook ads is to make sure it's a conversion campaign versus traffic. And to do that, you need to track it through Pixel. This has all gotten even more complicated than what I'm describing now. You need, in some ways, to set up like a third-party proxy to manage this through. Again, that's why I love Andrew Southworth. He taught me all of this. I do have a pretty unique background for a rapper. Like I did work in tech. So it is a bit easier for me. It's different for everyone. But I've had friends who've, never worked in tech. I just sent them the YouTube videos. They were running this themselves, after like a week or two. So yeah, I'd say that those links are essential and required. And they're great for watching things like, if you're running the ad, I can then see on the smart link the percentage of people who've clicked on the link and then clicked in through to Spotify, to Apple Music. It gives you some of those real stats. And that's, a benefit of Feature FM too, is it aggregates that all in your place, because data's your friend when you're running a marketing campaign. And knowing your fans is important, because, this might be something to touch on later, but like, even if it's not gonna always churn on streams, if you know who your fans are and you target them, people are first listeners, then they're like soft fans, and they're fans, and they're real fans, then maybe they'll buy your merch. And if you have 500 people who will buy merch from you and locally go to a show, you will be able to make a lot more money than millions and millions of streams to make a living off streams, right? And you should be trying to do everything and grow everything. Sure. But I've always advocated it's better to have like 100 diehard fans than 10,000 people who like stream your music, once every few days.
Yeah, and I mean, we try to preach that too. We try to preach just like the value of these super fans, and sort of, and they don't even have to be super fans. It's like you said, people who are willing to buy merch, people who are willing to come out to a show now that we can do that again. But the importance of the all-encompassing, like just trying to touch all corners of that. And I think you touched on a lot of great things there. And what you started to talk about, and I wanted to ask Corey and Laura as well, is just, you started to talk about just the connected nature of all of this, about using pre-saved links or smart links and getting started on an ad campaign. So Laura, I'll ask you, what do you think are some important takeaways for artists, just in terms of how something like Feature FM tools and, like let's say Facebook Ad Manager or YouTube ads, and how they can work together?
I mean, yeah, so you can obviously see where like you're getting, the most streams and things like that. So that can easily be something that you target when you're creating an ad. Say you're getting a ton of streams in Sweden, for example, you can easily select that and have an ad run in Sweden. And then, with the smart links, that's a great thing to keep, include within an ad, targeted to specifically your base, to your audience that already loves your music. Kind of what No Komment was saying. It's really important that, anytime you have a new release out, you can always use those smart links, easily include them within your ads, and, target both in your existing audience and even newer, audiences that are similar to those audiences that you already have.
Yeah, and Corey, did you have any other important sort of takeaways for artists, and just in terms of just making all of this work together?
Yeah, I mean, I go back to No Komment's recommendation for pre-saves. I am a huge advocate of not running ads for pre-saves either. I think those should really be used for fans that you like currently have. But as far as like incorporating all these different link types into a release cycle, using smart links for advertising is a 50-50 for me, because it depends on what the action is you want the fan to take. So if you want them to go to Spotify and stream a track, I would actually suggest like a short link, right? Because it'll take them directly there, or any type of like link shortener, with the benefit of still pixeling when they click on it. If the type of fan is not existent yet, but you're marketing to get a wider reach, that's when I would say use the smart link, because then you'll have different options. You don't know the learned behaviors of the fan, that sort of thing. So that would be sort of my comment for all those different link types in regards to advertising. It really depends on the use case of what you're trying to do. There's so many different types of ads. I wouldn't recommend the same thing for TikTok that I would for a Facebook ad or Instagram or YouTube, because it's very much, you need to learn the nature of the platform that you're marketing on or running ads on, as well as learning how the fans interact with your content on the platforms.
Yeah, and that's something that needs to be said as well. I think No Komment talked about just sort of knowing your fans, but Corey, what you started to get into is really just knowing how A, where your fans are, and B, how they interact with you on these different platforms, because you're right, they're all completely different. And you started to get into a little bit about some of your recommendations around different tactics for specifically advertising certain links. But something, this is getting a little inside baseball here, but a phrase you hear a lot around tech companies and around marketing agencies is A/B testing. So it's as simple as it sounds. It's really just it's taking two versions of something and being able to test it against each other. But it is something we hear a lot as it pertains to digital marketing. So having two versions of an ad set or two campaign tactics running at once and monitoring the results. Corey, can you talk a little bit about just how artists can get more comfortable with the concept of A/B?
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes, I'm going to divide this into two different conversations. Yeah. One is for somebody who's never run an ad before. A/B testing will come naturally for you as you get more comfortable running ads, especially on like Facebook, TikTok, or Google Ads to run TrueView on YouTube. You really just sort of have to watch it every day and sort of look at where the targeting is and how people are responding to it. For people who have run ads before and sort of know what A/B testing is, you always want to have different variations for your ads, meaning different types of creative, and you also want to take into account where it is, right? So when I say that, I mean, you want to have static images, which are just regular images. You want to have videos that are in the correct aspect ratio, meaning it's either set up for mobile or on desktop, which would be like the wider perspective. You want to have at least two different versions of that for every ad that you're running, because on Facebook, they have like the automated A/B testing where you can actually set it up and it'll show the ad that's performing the best for the fans that are engaging with it most, so you don't have to worry about it. But on platforms like TikTok or YouTube, it's a little bit more nuanced in terms of your experience. So make sure that if you're going to run like a TrueView ad, which are those like bumper ads that show up before a video plays that we all skip through after 5 seconds. Make sure that you're not like including the most boring part of a music video or you talking about something. You really want to make a lot of the success of ads, in addition to targeting, are the creative, which is why A/B testing is important. So just make sure it's interesting. Make sure it's something you'd want to watch. Like if you saw the content, you would want to engage with it. Like don't just put up the first 5 seconds of your music video that you and your friend shot down at the 7-Eleven while you were skateboarding and you thought it was cool. Make sure that it's something that you want to watch.
Hey, that was a good 7-Eleven video shoot, first of all. I know that. But no, I think in what Corey talked about, I would almost equate it to like when we talk about building a set list for your live performance. It's like you want to hit them with that first song. You want to get their attention. You want to keep people in the room who maybe didn't come to see you. It's not asimilar to sort of getting someone's attention in an ad. Laura, or actually, I'll kick this to No Komment because were you sort of, I know you have a tech background, but were you sort of familiar with the concept of A/B-ing things, or was this something that sort of came more natural to you as you experimented?
Yeah, I knew about A/B testing in the world of it has like a different application in terms of like, hey, like we're gonna test like a product out on some users versus like mods. So I did have to kind of learn it real time. Again, this is also spelled out in those YouTube videos that are out there, and Andrew Southworth isn't the only one. There's plenty if you just look up like Facebook, ads for Spotify and Apple Music, and so, I kind of started. I followed and did a lot of copying, and the A/B testing was naturally in what he did, where it's like, okay, if you put an ad up, it's gonna have a caption. You're gonna want to test a few different captions. If it's an ad on like content, you might want to change like the content for like, oh, it's like your album cover with the music playing versus like a video that's engaging, and how much content you have. And then, you might want to change the verse of the song that it jumps in on. So you can kind of do that to certain levels. But again, you just got to stay abreast and stay in it and stay on top of things, because like the Facebook, it's kind of changed where like if I run too many, if I try to A/B test too many, I actually am having poor results now. So I tweaked it over time, and it's just, and then you learn things, you learn those behaviors. And so I don't have to A/B test as much anymore because I kind of know what type of ads resonate. And you have things that you kind of have to learn real time, like something that happened for me, and this may not be true for everybody, but like you kind of want to get your cost per serving a result possible, right? You want like people to be basically converting to your Spotify page at the lowest cost. But I found that when I was doing that, and like one thing Facebook does is they'll put your ads in front of Facebook people, they'll put them in front of Facebook audience, or like the network audience, which is like their partners, and then they'll put it on Instagram. When I put it everywhere, I was getting these really low, awesome results, but I noticed there wasn't like a lot of conversion in as much in Spotify as I was expecting as it used to be, like for my first release. And then I started just putting it on Instagram, because I remembered that like when I originally ran ads, I had a lot of people like liking the post directly on Instagram, and then I was seeing a lot of traffic on Spotify. I was having much higher cost per result, but I was getting a lot more. I was seeing my streams go up, my listeners, saves. So you kind of got to be on top of all that when you're doing the A/B testing. So it can take many different forms, but I think it'll come naturally as you do things, and it's dependent on how much like content you have and things you want to put in the ad. So I'd say over time, it generally starts as, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm going to try one ad. And then, okay, if you can learn from people, you might kind of go really big and like, all right, I want to test a bunch of stuff. And then you kind of narrow. And I still A/B test. I'll still put out like 2 or 3 ads in an ad set. But it's definitely really important, because more than like getting the results, you just learn the behaviors of customers. You know, like, do they want to hear that I'm similar to a different artist? Do they just want a catchy bar from the song? Do they want, you know, these type of things? And you know, I'd be happy to touch on it at a later time in terms of like the steps I'm at now and where I'm at now. It's like, this does get exhausting, right? So hopefully you get to a point where like now I am at the place where I actually have bigger budgets. I want to go to people who can help me with this, but I wouldn't know what I needed help with or who to trust if I hadn't done it myself, right? And that can take some people 3 months, 6 months. It can take a year. It can take 3 years. It can take 5, right? You like, you know, Future was making music for 12 years before he popped, and like a lot of these people who seem all the time. So
yeah, that's a super important point.
Advertising. So
yeah, that's a super important point, right? Like along the way of experimentation, you are really figuring out what you need to get right and what you need to get better at. At first, you pretty much just need to get better at everything. But as you sort of start to work and experiment in A/B, especially as it pertains to ads, that's when you can start feeling more confident, as No Komment put it, working with someone else to sort of further develop that and work on things that maybe, okay, I've gotten this far, but I do need a little help with X, Y, and Z. And I think some people just want to jump to that. And they want to, you know, they want to get to the end of the race a little bit quicker. And, you know, it's just a testament to experimentation and sort of, you know, just working on stuff on your own. And we, throughout these answers, we've heard a little bit about, you know, like, you know, what sort of catches people's eyes and you know, what works or what catches people's ears. Laura, I wanted to ask you, as it pertains to creative assets, so, you know, photos, videos, whatever it might be, what should an independent artist keep in mind when they're working on an ad set? You know, how should they treat the use of photos or graphics and videos?
I mean, it's pretty much what Corey said. I mean, it should just be something that, you know, your audience is going to enjoy, something to really catch their eye. It is known that video tends to perform usually a little bit better than an image, which makes sense because, you know, obviously it's longer and it probably will engage people more for a longer period of time. So you might want to tend to, you know, boost more like video content than just still images. But again, you can always A/B test and see what works better with your audience.
Very cool. Well, before we start answering some questions from the audience who are tuned in and very engaged, it's good to see everyone is asking a ton of questions and sort of assisting each other. That's always my favorite thing when we run these, when artists are relying on each other and answering questions. I wanted to just kind of go back to talking a little bit about, you know, it does sort of speak to the interconnectedness of all this, but going back to just the like informative data that TuneCore and Feature FM both offer. So Laura, I'll stay with you, but just knowing how much informative data TuneCore offers artists who use it in terms of who's listening and where, what do you suggest artists sort of leverage in regard to some of the digital marketing strategies we've been talking about today?
I know we've already kind of mentioned this, but again, just knowing where your audience actually is, knowing where they're really like, you know, listening to your music a lot, not just like 1 or 2 streams, but, you know, if you're getting hundreds of streams in a certain country, I think it's really important to try and, you know, leverage your ads in those areas to try to just grow your fan base even more. And the other cool thing is you can, once you have enough people following you, people like interacting either on your website or maybe they're a part of your email list, you can actually create lookalike audiences on Facebook as well. So that's basically Facebook taking your current audience and kind of replicating it and putting your ads, targeting your ads to people who are very similar to your current audience. And so you can expand your audience that way through lookalike audiences. It's a really important thing that, Facebook does very well.
Yeah, for sure. And No Komment, has there been a time when you've sort of leaned on TuneCore data when you're thinking about, okay, I got a release campaign coming up in X amount of months, and you're sort of catching up on the data from maybe even just the past 2, 3, 4 months of your last campaign? Is there any sort of data that you feel like you can leverage or have had to leverage in the past?
Yeah. I'd say that, I mean, one kind of weird thing that's interesting and important is depending on the types of campaigns you're running, right, where your ads are serving, you'll see how many streams you're getting, and then you also get the payout, right? And then the payout that people also need to understand about like how Spotify pays streams is there's different quality of streams, right? Like a premium account, an unpaid account, right? And so campaigns that might be more successful targeting certain countries or certain areas, and might get more streams, but the pay per stream ends up being lower. Sure. So it depends on what you want to prioritize. So that's like an example of data I could only get from TuneCore, right? I only know how much money I'm making directly from y'all versus if I was optimizing for streams. That's an important thing to know, because then it also kind of tells you, which Spotify data won't, the quality of the stream, which is really the most important in terms of trying to grow as an artist, right? Like you can get your numbers up to a certain point. I know artists who have millions and millions of streams and they probably get paid a fair amount for it, but they could never sell, right? Because if you look at their audience, you look at their fan engagement, and that's fine. It's different for different people. But if you care really about engaging your fans and creating that kind of like, you want to make sure that it's high quality. So that's definitely one. And then, one quick other one that's not necessarily directly from TuneCore, but into the data we have, is looking at that in conjunction with like social media data, right? So people following you on Instagram, is that sometimes it can be two separate ecosystems, and that's okay. You'll see certain campaigns, certain things you're doing will be happening. You'll see like, oh, there's certain activity in TuneCore where like things are going up, Instagram's remaining flat, or it's going up alongside, and you'll kind of see what is making people drive back and forth between platforms. But I want to highlight that it's okay if you're not seeing a lot of social media growth, but you're seeing like your account go up in TuneCore, you're seeing streams go up, you're seeing things improve, because it's most important that people are listening to your music rather than like following you for the pictures. And it can work both ways, but I just want to highlight that because I've had that issue, and sometimes my own anxieties where I've watched like my stream, my followers count go up, pretty significantly, but my Instagram remain relatively flat, and I would definitely stay from like any type of cheap wins you see out there, where you think someone might be saying like, hey, for like a few $100, like I'll grow your following and do this. Like that will always come back to bite you, because I've seen that, luckily doing this for 10 years, happening to other artists, friends of mine, seeing things where they've been like, yo, I tried this. I'm like, that's not going to get you real fans. And what happens is if you have a bunch of fake people following you, all those types of things leading into this, it ruins the algorithms and you'll basically get blacklisted. So just stay abreast of all those types of things as you're running those campaigns, and the data can help you make sense of what's real and what's not.
I appreciate you mentioning that, because it's something we've had to do a lot of education around here at TuneCore, just because, first of all, we're not pointing the blame at anyone who wants to get a leg up on not even competition, just on building, a higher list of streams or number of streams or followers. And I feel like there was a stretch there where it was kind of the Wild West, and you could kind of get away with it. There were, some scammers, but then there were ways of, click farms and stuff like that. And it's important for us to reiterate, not like an integrity level, but really on a level of like, if you get caught doing this, you'll get your music taken down, and that negatively impacts you. It was all for the sake of just having, a bolstered number of followers or streams or whatever it might be. And even if your music doesn't get taken down, the people you're trying to impress, people at labels, managers, publicists, stuff like that, they can sort of follow the streams if they see where your music is being played, based on that stuff. So people have got a lot smarter about that stuff. So I think that's totally worth mentioning, and I appreciate it. I'll wrap with Corey and just give a chance to talk about, while we're talking about leveraging data, if there was any other, sort of data points that Feature FM offers artists in your dashboards and how it can be used to make better marketing decisions that haven't already been talked about. If you've touched on most of them, I don't want to make you repeat yourself either, but I definitely want to give you a chance to talk about any additional sort of stuff there.
How much time do we have? Do we have 3 hours? I think there's two ones that I think would be really important around digital marketing and advertising. One is utilizing activities and channels, which on our platform means being able to see where fans are coming from down to the ad set that you're running. So I think that's really important, one that you can have on any of our subscription tiers, and that really shows you the correlation between where the fan is coming from on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify. I don't have 40 minutes to list all of the platforms that you're working on. And then also to sort of which platform they're going to, right? So you can see if a fan comes from Spotify, from a Facebook, Instagram story, through Facebook Business Manager, all the way to Spotify, and be able to see where they're going. And I think the second one is our audience segments that we have, where you can sort of see how many people follow you, but also break it down to the point where how many followers they have, who has engaged with you more than once, meaning who has pre-saved a track more than once, who are your top fans, meaning they've engaged with, your landing pages more than 5 times in the last 30 days. And being able to, break those out and email them directly, or make them into like a super fan group through the platform. And I think those are really important metrics as you're scaling. For like an artist that's just starting out, I think just being able to have all these places where you're running ads and having them go to in one place is probably the best piece of advice I'd leave with.
That's huge. And I know someone had mentioned, or I mentioned it earlier, I did just want to put up that link to the Facebook ad manager. I'm going to keep it right down here for all these artists who are watching right now, just to check it out. Again, that just pertains to if you were joining late. Laura mentioned, Gus, and actually No Komment with his own experience mentioned getting this started on your own instead of just taking an existing post and boosting it. So I'm going to leave that up there for a second. And these answers have been fantastic. I'm going to, ad manager. I misspelled that. Thank you for saving me. It's ads manager. I'm going to fix that for you real quick. But I do appreciate all the answers that you guys have been providing here. I know it's a lot of homework for folks at home watching to kind of take and start applying to themselves. But I was going to just dive into the comments here and start highlighting just some of the questions we have. So someone asked, is Feature FM a TuneCore feature? I should probably say not officially. We're partners. I would recommend heading to our tunecore.com/artist-services, just our artist services page on the homepage, where you can actually get a nice discount for signing up through TuneCore. So check that out. All right, what else do we got here? We have this new feature where we can highlight the bottom screen. So sometimes it's a little bit, someone asked for that. And let's see. Someone asked if YouTube Content ID works for songs that are already released on our YouTube channel. That is a little bit more of a TuneCore technical question, but I think someone answered that in the chat. Sorry about that. Cool. Someone wrote, how important is the artist's bio in marketing songs? I would answer that one. I'd say it's pretty important if you have a story to tell. I would definitely focus on what that story is. I don't think anyone wants to read an encyclopedia, but I would definitely focus on just sort of highlighting what your story is, where you're coming from, what makes you, sort of interesting and worth listening to. And if you're not so hot at writing about yourself, I would say hire a friend or have someone do that. Very cool. Let's see. Would y'all recommend having a fair number of people on a mailing list before getting into Facebook ads? Does anyone want to take a stab at that one?
I mean, if you're trying to create like a lookalike audience, Facebook does recommend that your custom audience, so like the audience that you already have is at least at 1,000. So I definitely think this is something that you should probably focus on first. Mailing list plus just like your organic social following, before you really get into, trying to build any type of lookalike audiences and things like that.
Cool. I think this is a cool one maybe to kick over to No Komment. Amber Crowley asks, how do you balance digital marketing ads versus overdoing the posting ads? So I assume that means just cadence. Do you recommend a social media posting schedule? Like you said, it's out to her.
Yeah, that's absolutely. It's an important thing to note, to pay attention to with your fans. I would say that I definitely have just reached a cadence. Like I know to do the ads, and like this is actually a funny thing to bring up, is like with the ads, there's certain value in like retargeting people, because there's like it's like a lot of it is psychological for people that already like your music. Is once people need the familiarity before they sometimes take a dive on anything in life. And so if they see your ads a lot, they can become more familiar. And that's why retargeting can be effective. But at the same time, it can also turn people off. I've literally had like some friends be like, "Oh, dude, why does a sponsored post keep coming up?" And they already follow me, right? And so that benefit made me realize like, okay, maybe right now I'm going to pivot to like not certain audiences where like I'm going to exclude my current audience because they're starting to engage at my post at a high rate. And if they start seeing the sponsored ad plus posts like kind of overlapping, that can have a negative effect. So a lot of it is learning. Schedule is super important. And I would just say, be true to you too. Like if you're someone who's on social media who has an Instagram that like people want to watch because you're like have really great fashion sense or something, or you do freestyle videos, that'll just come naturally. Your content is what people are there for. And then the ads are just meant to like boost your songs that you definitely should do. Like I do a schedule. It comes out the day my song comes out. I run it for like 3 to 4 weeks with a certain budget, and then I tweak it within that, and then I stop it for that song, right? And then sometimes I'll bring it back if I start to see traffic coming in it where I want to give Spotify additional signals. So I'd recommend a schedule, be flexible, but also just be honest with like, are you an Instagram person or you're not? And if you're not, you don't have to, it's not a one size fits all. People tell you, oh, post 2-3 times a day, every single day on like every social media platform. If that's not you, that's not you. Because people will have different approaches and get found in different ways. And I think it's just about leveraging marketing to accentuate who you already are.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. I think for a while, a lot of chatter, a lot of marketing experts out there were constantly giving people these numbers of what they should and shouldn't be doing. And I think we've evolved just as fans, as artists, as as people using social media over the past 5 years. And I couldn't agree more. Know your platforms, know where you feel comfortable, and know how comfortable you feel. Because if you're working consistently and you're getting your music out there, you'll find the right avenues of discovery. And a few people have been asking, this is a little bit more of a technicality. I want to just clarify. Someone had just sort of been asking about Ad Manager on Facebook and Instagram, or just either. And I wanted to have someone clarify that one for the audience.
So you can do one or the other. It doesn't have to be like, so basically if you want to boost on both your Instagram and your Facebook, since Instagram is owned by Facebook, you need to connect your Facebook page and your Instagram account before it will allow you to actually boost anything to your Instagram account. But you can just have a Facebook page and just boost to that Facebook page. But you do need a Facebook page in order to boost on Instagram.
I'm throwing you another follow-up. What's the difference between Ads Manager and Creator Studio?
I actually am not too familiar with Creator Studio. So, but Ads Manager is just, it's a better way to actually like create ads. Again, it just keeps everything more, categorized nicely when you're creating your campaigns based on the different goals that you're trying to achieve.
Someone asked, where can I find a good schedule or frequency model? I'd be remiss not to say TuneCore Social. The tool available to all of our artists for free, and we have a paid premium version as well, so definitely check that out. I just like this question. I thought it was funny. How are we supposed to write and sing songs and market them? They're only 24 hours in a day. I do not have an answer for you, but I just really like that question. I appreciate it. It's definitely a lot of work. There's no doubt about that. I'll wrap up with one more question. actually specifically directed at No Komment. Which social platform has been the best for engaging for you?
In terms of social media, it's still Instagram. That's where I can connect with my fans most directly. I definitely do something where, like, depending on the release, again, there was that cadence question. I will DM sometimes my fans who've, like, all those people who've reached out to me. I keep a list and I'm like, okay, this is a big release. I send them all like, hey, thank you so much. I love all the love you've shown me. Here's a link before everyone's ready for a release, just to keep people engaged on that level. But if you consider Spotify, a social platform, which I do too, that is, like, by far where my fans are. I think I'm leaning much heavier into the music than rather, like, being a personality. I think there's thousands of people at this point in my career that know my music and listen to it, but, like, really have no idea or any interest in who I am, which is honestly how I've always wanted it. So I'm happy about that, but I also recognize that if I want to keep going to next levels, you need combinations of everything. So yeah, I'll keep that short. That's the best. I have, like, no followers on Twitter. I haven't had any luck with that yet.
Everyone's different.
Yeah, exactly. I actually used to have both. I deleted everything because I was freaking out, like, 5 years ago about social media, but realized I needed it all. So who knows? Maybe one viral tweet later, and that'll be my top platform.
I feel like you may have just contributed the most relatable statement any artist has ever, like, dropped on a live session. It's just, like, freaking out and deleting stuff. I think that's very relatable. But at this point, we are up on the hour, so I just want to say thank you to Corey Crossfield from Feature FM, thank you to Laura Brown from TuneCore, and thank you to No Komment from Brooklyn for joining me today. And as a note to everyone, we're going to make this video available on our YouTube page. If you signed up and registered, we'll be setting out that link, and we'll be sending out a little discount code as well for you as well. So I just want to say thanks for joining us, and thanks for engaging and asking all these great questions.
Thank you.
Catch you guys next time.
Thanks, everybody.
See ya.